Hi everyone, welcome back to my Kubernetes Crash Course series. My name is Suraj Singh Rajput. I'm a DevOps engineer and a technical trainer. In this module, we will learn about Kubernetes Ingress services. So without a further delay, let's move back into video. In this module, we will learn about Kubernetes Ingress. But before I start with Kubernetes Ingress, let's try to understand what was the need for Kubernetes Ingress. So let me give a scenario in this particular module. Yes. In the previous module, we saw about something called as Kubernetes service, which offers load balancer type of balancing. Where what happened is, when we tried to implement load balancer, it tried to access external IP addresses. Correct. So we had a clear-cut discussion on that one, where it will be looking for external IP to expose the entire cluster on a cloud basis. Yes. But can I say external IP addresses are chargeable? Yes. And that was one of the issue, not exactly, but it also affects to our cost explorement. So now, if we want to understand what was the need for Kubernetes Ingress, see, one issue was to pricing part, where if we use multiple IPs, obviously cost will go up. But there was one more issue that said Kubernetes load balancer of service type. Okay, so Kubernetes service load balancer. So people, the issue with Kubernetes service load balancer is it does provide load balancing by connecting to external IP, but it provides DNS round robin type of load balancing. For people who doesn't know what is DNS round robin, see, there might be two pods. There might be pod 1 and pod 2. Right. The service load balancing, what it does is, your request, first it will be sent to server 1. If there is one more request, it will be sent to server 2. If there is one more request, it will be sent to server 1. If there is one more request, it will be sent to server 2. So it provides one of the basic level of load balancing. Right. Whereas on the outside, we have some advanced level of routing, types of routings also, that is host-based routing, path-based routings. By using this, we can implement very complex and advanced type of routing inside our load balancing. Right. These sort of host-based and path-based routing will be offered to us by Nginx. That is one of the widely used reverse proxy or forward proxy load balancers. And there is one more thing, ep-5. They offer these sort of facilities for us, right? With very advanced features, they offer these sort of load balancing capability. But the load balancing capability or type what we saw in case of our Kubernetes service is of DNS round robin. So somewhere we were looking for some advanced features like what we offer in these sort of things like Nginx or these sort of things, right? Even the people who are migrating from a normal virtual machines onto your Kubernetes, their only issue was they don't have these sort of ingress options. Right? So then what they did is, so this feature was not initially present in Kubernetes, but later after some time, after the release of Kubernetes, they integrated it inside this Kubernetes. But for some time, Kubernetes was working without ingress features. All it had was Kubernetes service with a basic type of load balancing features, right? So then when Kubernetes introduced ingress type, so everything got changed. Let's try to understand this with a particular example. Alright people, this is what the thing. Alright people, this is what. Just imagine there is one cluster, there is one more cluster. Cluster you can consider as 2 pods with a proper deployment and service. 2 pods with a proper deployment as well as service. Right. So this is deployment, this is service, this is proper deployment as well as service. So now they have their own service and deployment, they have their own service and deployment, and both are, this is cluster 1, cluster 2. Right. So the next the point here will be, if you try to expose this with a service type of load balancer outside, for each cluster you should buy one IP address, one particular IP address. This is what I explained it to you in the beginning, right, where I explained external IP addresses. So when the number of external IP addresses increases, obviously what happens? The charges will go up. That's one other thing. And on contrary part, this method used to offer what? Very basic type of load balancing. Now, what if I have only one IP or one domain name? When user reaches out to this place, he can clearly specify, I want to reach out to this cluster. He can use same IP address, he can specify with some sort of arrangements. Like for example, I want to reach flipkart.com/test, or I want to reach out to IP address 192.168.113.45, right, some phrase. Automatically your request will be redirected to either this cluster or this cluster from a same IP address or from a same name. Got it? But this feature was lacking in your which place? Normal load balancing, that is service type of load balancing. Right. And to achieve this particular stuff, they came up with the Ingress. And it is what we call it as path-based routing or host-based routings. We can specify the name followed by path, we can specify the thing followed by path. Got it? Hope you understood what issue Ingress is trying to solve. And if I have to go through this particular stuff, it also says the same thing. Centralized, flexible and efficient way to manage external access and routing to these places. Got it? And without Ingress, you would have exposed each service with separate external IPs and load balancer, which is inefficient and costly. That is what I explained right now. Using multiple IPs will also cause your cost to go up, and using multiple ways of routing also. Okay, using only multiple things, using only multiple IPs will increase your cost to go up. Correct? Now, then how does Kubernetes works? How does Ingress works then? Right. So it has two components, something called as Kubernetes resource, something called as Kubernetes. So Kubernetes Ingress has two components. One is called as Kubernetes controller, another one is called as Kubernetes resource. Right. What are these things and how these things are working, or what are these things? Let's try to understand. When I was explaining the drawbacks of Kubernetes service, I did mention about something called as Nginx. I did mention about something called as F5. These load balancers offer some distinct or new sort of features. Right. So the point here is, the features which are offered by either Nginx or F5 any of these features, what happens is they themselves will include or they themselves will create in the form of controller. That is what they call it as ingress controller. The feature can be, can I say Nginx has some sort of different features like forward proxy, reverse proxy kind of stuff, and F5 has its own unique features. So what these people do is Nginx will build its own controller and it will release onto GitHub or onto Kubernetes downloadable platform. In the same way, F5 also built its own controller and they released onto this place. Got it? This is what your ingress controller. A component that implements the rules, acting as a reverse proxy and load balancer inside a cluster. So, what are the features they had? They created this entire features into a form of controllers and they released into the GitHub. If you are using Nginx ingress controller, you need to go and you need to download your Nginx ingress controller. Got it? So, if you're using ingress load balancer, you need to download, if you're using Nginx load balancer, you should download Nginx ingress controller. If you're using F5 load balancer, you should download F5 ingress controller. Right? Where to download, how to download, let me show you that one. Can you see, people? I can just move into Kubernetes Ingress and there will be a thing called as Ingress controllers. I can click on Ingress controllers. He will take me to, can you see, different Ingress controllers, Alibaba Cloud's different one. And you can see K8s, Azure, F5, that is a different thing. If you can click on this place, he will redirect you to F5's website. From there, you can download your controller. You see? Alright, people. And in case if you're looking for Nginx Ingress controller, we can go to this place. From there, we can download the Nginx Ingress controller. Hope you understood how to download the Ingress controller. And Ingress controller is the one who will implement the rules or forwarding traffics. But who will define these rules? Who will define the ingress rules? Who will define where the traffic has to be forwarded? That will be done by us by using a thing called as Kubernetes resource file or Kubernetes ingress manifest file. Right? Let me go and let me show you where we can access Kubernetes ingress manifest file and how it looks and how the trafficking or redirecting rules will be written there. Can you see, people? So client, he will be accessing whatever ingress managed load balancer, that will be done by us, and ingress, this is the routing rule that we will define right now. People, can you see this diagram? Client will be accessing ingress load balancer and immediately the traffic will move forward, and how it moves, what is the routing rule and all the things, we will be defining by using a file right now. And you can see it will be forwarded on to which place? Your service only directly. And if you slightly move on that, can you see? This is what I was mentioning about in my explanation, something called as path. How the path-based routing will go on from this particular space. Your service and everything remains same, but path will change here. Alright, people, we'll come back to this one when we do practically. Right. Hope you understood what is Kubernetes ingress controller, and this is what we call it as Kubernetes resource. Right. We will create the Kubernetes resource. We'll create what? Kubernetes resource. that defines what is the trafficking rule, where it has to be forwarded, how the port works. And once we define this one, then Kubernetes Ingress controller will come into picture. He'll accept all the stuff and he'll redirect it to a backend of a service, right? So this is what happens in this case. Can you see? Defines the routing rules, host based or path basing. That is a resource. We will create this resource, and immediately we will have in the backend of Kubernetes Ingress controller, right? But the thing is, Minikube doesn't. There was a thing. Minikube kind of doesn't support Ingress and all. I mean, it used to, but we can still make Minikube work on Ingress by downloading add-ons. How to download add-ons? How to do Ingress path-based routing or host-based routing? We'll check it right now in the practical session. For this purpose, let me create first a deployment. Then on top of deployment, I will create a service. Then I will start creating Kubernetes Ingress, that is host-based method of Ingress. Towards the end of this session, we will discuss what is the difference between Kubernetes Ingress path-based routing as well as host-based routing, right? Let's move on now. I will create a Kubernetes deployment as of now. For that purpose, I do have a deployment file. So just let me create a deployment file right now. And for this purpose, I just started my Minikube cluster. Now, let me create a deployment file first. And in this case, I will be using Ingress controller because I'm deploying my application on an Nginx. Right. So, my bad, application was not installed. So alright, let's move to the same command. Alright people, as you can see, a deployment has been created. Let's check whether deployment has been actually created or not with the command kubectl get pods -o wide. Yes, there is already a Kubernetes deployment running. On top of that, let's check kubectl get deployment. Can you see? There is a deployment has been created and it is running right now. Right. Now, on top of this deployment, let me create Kubernetes service file by exposing the NodePort. Let's move ahead. vi service Alright people, a service has also been created. Let me check this one. As you can see, the service has been exposed on the NodePort and you can access this on this cluster, right? And we're using a NodePort 31000. So let's just try to check it whether it is actually working or not by using a Minikube address. CURL. And as we know, this is our Minikube address. As you can see, people, Nginx is already running in this particular space, right? So now what we're gonna do is, let's move ahead with this, our Ingress controller. So we will be installing Nginx Ingress controller, which we know in Minikube it is not a default one. We need to download this one by enabling Minikube add-ons. So let me go and let me first enable this one, then I'll download this, then we'll check it, then we'll move forward. For that, what I'm going to do is, I will just use this command, Minikube add-on enable Ingress. As you can see, it has been downloading from our GitHub. In theory, we have clearly seen, we went back to our Kubernetes documentation. There we saw different type of Ingress controllers. It can be HA proxy, it can be Ambassador, it can be our Nginx. We went back and we saw the things there. Right. As you can see, Ingress add-on is enabled. How to check whether it is enabled? So you can use this particular command to check whether it has been enabled or not. Can you see? Nginx Ingress control has been enabled and it has been running. That is correct. Now, once we are done with this one, I have one more command, Minikube add-ons. We can actually check different add-ons that are available in our Minikube cluster. As you can see, as soon as you run the command Minikube add-ons list, all the available different add-ons will be shown. We can go and we can use these things. But as of now, since we already installed Ingress controller, let's move ahead from there and let me create a host-based Ingress controller. Right. So what is the difference between host-based as well as path-based? We will check the difference right now. But let me create this controller first. Right. kubectl. As you can see, people, Ingress controller or Ingress for this deployed application has been created. Ingress for your Nginx deployed application is created. Let's move ahead. Let's check with this one. To access this, like we said, it will expose the application to the external world on HTTP and HTTPS. To access this, what I'll do is, I will enter the IP address in the etc host. Then instead of just a few moments ago, we accessed our application via Minikube IP address. Instead of that, we will use the host name to access that particular application, right? So how to do it? For that, first let me go to etc directory, right? So there, let me do something called as l grep hosts. Can you see? There is a file called as hosts. So let me add my Minikube IP address inside my etc host file so that I will be mapping my IP address to my host name. So let's check how to add this particular thing. We'll come back. So let's check how to add this thing in our etc host file. So as you can see, people, I have added my Minikube IP address or Minikube node address, that is 192.168.49.2 as your nginx.local. I have mapped this IP address to my nginx.local as a host name. So when I save and exit from here, and instead of accessing this on an IP address as well as node port number, I will use something like this. As you can see, I'm able to access my Nginx application via Ingress and that too on a host-based path. As you can see, we are able to access our application on a host address, that is nginx.local. You can map any different address to this thing. And there is one more thing, you can expose this onto your external service by using port mapping. And how to do it, please go and try this thing and just let me know in the comment section. Right. So now, as we discussed, so let's understand what is the difference between host based mapping and path based. Okay. So as we discussed, let's understand what is the difference between your host based routing as well as path based routing. Let's understand what is the difference between path based routing as well as host based routing. Right. So whenever a user tries to access star.com or staragile.com, right? But as per our convenience, we have taken star.com. Or if he accesses star/Flipkart, right? Then Ingress should forward its request to this app or this particular service where my pods are running as a deployment. Right. And if a user tries to access star.com/Amazon, a request has to be forwarded to a service called as Amazon, where my pods are running under a deployment. Right. This is what we call it as path-based routing in Ingress. Right. In the same way, if we can set up somehow, like in case of host-based routing, user will try to access your Flipkart application by giving a domain name as flipkart.ingress.com. User will try to access your Flipkart application or a Flipkart service by using flipkart.star.com. Right. So star.com is a domain or host domain name that we have, and Flipkart is the prefix, or that is your host based routing. Next, and in case if the user wants to access Amazon, right, he will go with option called as amazon.star.com. Star.com. So automatically the request will be redirected to your this particular space. Right. So this is what the Ingress does, and we have seen both the options. One is your, that is path based routing. Another one is your host based routing. Alright people. So in this module we understood, in this particular module we understood what is Ingress, why do we use Ingress, right, and what are the types of routing Ingress provides us, what are the type of different Ingress controllers will get it. This is what we have learned in this particular module, and we have seen hands-on demo also. If this session has helped you learn about Kubernetes, do hit like, share and subscribe button for Star Agile. I will meet you in the next video. Till then, keep learning.